Okay, let's be honest. We've all felt it, right? This weird, quiet shift where commitment just started to feel heavy. It didn't just vanish one day. It kind of faded out. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into the psychology of why that is and what it actually means for anyone trying to date right now.
It always starts with these phrases that we know a little too well. Nobody comes out and says, I have a deep philosophical opposition to long-term partnership. No. Instead, you get this one, I'm not ready.
Or its very popular cousin, let's not put labels on it. You know, the classic move to keep everything fuzzy, comfortable, and, well, totally temporary.
And of course, the final boss. Let's just go with the flow. I mean, it sounds so chill, so enlightened, doesn't it? But here's the thing about the flow.
Yeah, it never actually flows anywhere. It just sits there. And that's the real question, isn't it? Why are so many of us stuck in this exact same spot?
All right, so the first big reason has everything to do with how we meet people now. We've basically turned dating into a form of online shopping.
I mean, this whole cycle probably looks painfully familiar. It's a loop that's designed for browsing, not for actually building anything real. Swipe, match, a little small talk, get bored, and repeat. It makes dating feel disposable, and it literally trains our brains to see people as, well, products on a shelf.
And this leads to a very real psychological thing called choice overload. The idea is simple. When your brain sees an endless feed of options, it doesn't feel liberated. It feels paralyzed. You can't fully invest in the person right in front of you because there's this nagging voice in your head wondering if someone better is just one more swipe away.
And this, right here, perfectly sums up the problem. Real commitment means you have to choose one person. And that means you have to close the door on all the other options. You have to close the tabs. But we live in a culture that's all about keeping our tabs open, right? So commitment starts to feel less like a choice and more like a huge sacrifice.
So that kind of begs a bigger question. There was a time when commitment meant safety, stability, a sure thing. So what on earth has it come to mean to us now?
Well, for a lot of us, it feels like a loss of our independence, a loss of all those other options we just talked about. Sometimes even a loss of our own identity, or, let's be real, a loss of your main character energy. We all want that deep connection, but we also want a foolproof exit strategy just in case.
And this fear of losing something, it leads us right into our second big point. We've all built up some serious emotional armor. So much so that being detached now gets framed as the healthy way to be.
Now, this is so important to get. It's not always that people are actively trying to avoid commitment. A lot of the time, they're just trying to recover. Recovering from past heartbreaks, from being ghosted a dozen times, from messy situationships that went nowhere. People are just tired.
And somewhere along the line, we gave this emotional armor a total rebrand. We see someone acting distant and we call them mysterious, but what psychology might call it is avoidant. We praise someone for being so emotionally mature, when really, they might just be terrified of real intimacy. And that calm and unbothered vibe we all seem to want, a lot of the time it's just plain old emotional detachment.
This quote just nails it. We confuse avoidance with strength because, let's face it, in a world that moves so fast and where people can feel so replaceable, being truly vulnerable feels incredibly unsafe. So of course we put on the armor. It just feels logical.
This all feeds this fantasy we could call the illusion of later. We just keep pushing commitment down the road, waiting for that perfect time. I'll commit when my career is perfect, or I'll commit when I'm totally healed from my past, or the big one, I'll commit when I'm 100% sure. But here's the thing, connection doesn't wait for perfect, and eventually it just loses its spark.
So, we've talked about endless choice and our emotional armor, but that brings us to the real fear. The one thing that's hiding underneath it all, the thing nobody really likes to say out loud.
So what is it? After everything we've talked about, what's the one fear that's really running the show? Here it is. Most people aren't actually afraid of commitment itself. What they're terrified of is committing and being wrong. They're afraid of investing all that time, all that energy, all those feelings into the wrong person, and then having to look in the mirror and blame themselves when it doesn't work out.
And the result of that fear? Well, actually caring starts to feel dangerous. So to protect themselves from making the wrong call, people just stay undecided. They live in that gray area, the situationship. Half in so you can feel something, but half safe so you can get out without it hurting too much.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important takeaway from all this. The reason this whole landscape feels so complicated is that in our modern world, being vulnerable has become an incredibly expensive thing to do.
So look, commitment isn't dead. It's not gone. It's just really cautious now. It only really happens in those rare spaces where people feel genuinely safe enough to put their armor down and actually pay that high price of being open.
Because a real connection, the kind that can actually lead to commitment, it needs so much more than just liking the same movies. It needs real emotional safety. It needs you to actually be present with the other person. And it requires a willingness to go deep in a world that really loves to just stay in the shallows.
So, if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this thought. If commitment feels heavy these days, it's not because love and connection stop mattering. Not at all. It's because the price of being truly, genuinely vulnerable with another human being has become incredibly high. And that's a cost that not everyone feels like they can afford to pay right now.